Hello.
We were just doing some introductory remarks. This is Chris.
Nice to
Um,
meet you.
you as well. And Chris had left a comment on one of my videos. We had a little text thread, and then yeah, we decided to do a conversation. Um, and we were just talking about uh, doing a few introductory things, and I figured, oh, we should start the recording. And we had just said that you were older than me, and you had generally been non-religious or non I didn't use those terms or something,
It's okay.
and now you've kind of come around to it. And how you were seeing me and you a little bit in the sense
Yeah,
of
yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of the things that I've went through many of your videos, I can sympathize with, right? Now I went through many of the um I don't know, you could call it occult phases, new age phases, nihilistic phases, and it really wasn't until literally 4 years ago that I I decided to become a Christian. I had
mhm,
a direct experience with Jesus, and it has just
mhm.
completely and utterly transformed my world.
Yeah. I
And I'm
mean, yeah,
still trying to figure
you
out
say
what's going on.
decided. Yeah, you say decided, but like it's like I know what you mean because like at some point there's like this turn where it's like, oh yes, but like it's almost like it come like Christ like comes chasing after people, and it's like I remember there was a moment where I was watching a video, um, and just there was a moment where I saw that like, oh, this man is on the cross because he loves people. And I was like, oh man, am I becoming a Christian? Like, fuck, this is not what I expected. And like, this is going to create a lot of complications. But I was like, oh man, I kind of have no option. Like, this is so awesome. And so, yeah, I can definitely resonate with that sort of, or, I think you heard what I was saying.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
get it, man. Yeah, I just remember I remember too. I remember talking to my first annoying Christian friend, and he told me, that's what he said. Um, and I told him, I'm like, there is no way I am ever going to become a Christian. Like, it's not, you're just wasting your time even talking to me. And, you know, he's like, go
Yeah.
read the book of John. I'm like, okay, whatever. And, I did like many
Hmm.
people did. I opened up the Bible, I read Genesis or whatever. I'm like, oh, great. Here this is again. And, here we go through the book of John. And that kind of piqued my interest because I had this narrative kind of fueled up, right? It's like the Bible, what is that? It's this book written by men used to control other people, right? That was sort of the narrative that I had. And yeah, you read through John, you read through the Gospels, and that's an awfully strange way of trying to control people when you actually stop and read it for yourself and you don't listen to people tell you what it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that was kind of where it started with me.
Cool, man. Yeah, there's something that reminds me of like, it's like, there's something, it's almost like a rock bottom effect in a way. Obviously not like super intense, but like that's kind of like I was reminded of when you were saying that of when I first looked into like the I Ching
Mm.
particularly because the I Ching it was so antithetical to my modern mind where it's like oh you throw some coins and like it's random
Yeah.
and but there was a point where I was like man I hell if I know this reality is clearly beyond my apprehension. So it's like I'll go for it, and sure enough, like it seemed to be, not random or something, however you want to phrase it. So it's like that moment of like your willingness to read the book of John. It's like that is it's almost grace. Like it's like that's when grace comes in, and it's like you just got to open yourself up, and it's like humility, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I
cool.
mean,
Also,
sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no.
I was just going to say, like, I had gotten to this point where, um, whatever. I had like the American dream. By the time I was 30 or so, I had the American dream. I had everything that everybody's supposed to have. I had a career. I have beautiful wife, beautiful daughters that I love. Got a house in the suburbs with a fence and a great job and everything. And But yet I was depressed and an alcoholic, and it's just everything. It's like, oh, go make your own meaning up for everything. Okay, that's a lot harder done than
Yeah,
said, right?
for
And
sure, man.
so I sit there and I go to church, and it's like, I'm doing it for my family because it's like, what am I going to teach them? Right? That's where I was at. I'm like, what? Oh, here you go. Here you're a giant meat sack that is just made of stardust. Great. Go figure it out. And
Hmm.
so I, go to church or whatever. And yeah, that was the first time I went. And boy, first church I went to, it's in a YMCA, which was really telling. But I met some really amazing people there for the first time.
Cool, man.
Like it just kind of changed my perception of a lot of Christians. So
Yeah,
I don't know, man. It's been a interesting ride ever since then.
yeah, yeah. I hear that, man. Cool. Well, I suppose yeah. So the we just I suppose we felt called to do this or decided to do this talk because I don't know. I guess it's hard to say why anything happens, but um, there was a couple topics that we were discussing in this text conversation that we thought maybe we could expand upon or explore further and
Mhm.
stuff. And yeah, I'm definitely. I suppose we could get into that a bit. I don't know exactly how we want to go about it, but
Yeah, it's
because
fine. I mean,
yeah,
I got the list over here of what you had brought up.
yeah, we
Um,
so we were talking about on my which video
it,
was
it
it?
was the open circle 4 or 5,
Six.
maybe
Six, yeah.
6. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that one we were talking about words and um spirit-filled communication and stuff. I don't know if I should just read your comments or like we could go through the comments or we could but basically so I guess basically the what came out of that was I said I would like to at least touch on the things that we spoke about
Hmm.
and then I gave a little list of those. So those were the rhythm,
Hmm.
quote unquote, the rhythm. You brought up the idea of hypnosis, which I thought was super interesting. Like, I think that's fascinating, bro.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
this, like, especially when talking about the distinction between like malevolent hypnosis and like, let's say, like, natural, healthy hypnosis or something like that. It's like the ability to sync up with someone, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
or it's like, talking is hypnosis. It's
It
like
it is.
yeah, it's like I'm saying words and I'm changing things in your mind so that you understand me, you
Right.
know? And it's like the aim of the hypnosis is like not is a mundane but also good aim. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously like there's a way that this can go sour.
There's so much there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. Um.
Yeah.
You.
So I'll finish the list and then
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to hear what like because you made a connection to a particular thinker and
Hmm.
I'd be curious to hear if you have more to say about that. So the other things we're talking about like spirit-filled words or spirited words, kind of
Hmm.
in the sense of Barfield, and also
Okay.
gestures like speaking of eurythmy, I
Yeah.
suppose, and but also just like spirited, uh, uh,
Spirited. Period.
yeah, I suppose, yeah, and
Yeah.
then you're talking about temporal compression, which I
Mm.
think is a super numinous topic. Like I'm kind of it just like it almost makes me stop because it's just like boom, so much uh, stuff in there. And then the last one, I brought up the idea of effective interfacing, or I think efficient was actually the word that I was looking for,
Right.
and making reference to Galahad. Um, speaking about, I'm not sure if you are familiar at all. Um,
I went through them the other day.
I see. And then,
Yeah.
and then making he's talking about like cells in a body and what makes the body function is efficient interfacing between the cells. And we're
Mm.
taking the macroscopic, microscopic, and stuff. So yeah, obviously that's like a very there's like this constellation of ideas is
Mm.
so large that it's almost hard to find focus on it or something,
Well, and so there you go.
but
There's hypnosis at work, right? He's already been seeding ideas into your mind.
yeah, yeah. So there's our introductory hypnosis, and now
Yeah. Well,
and
let's
yeah.
talk
So I
about this
guess
rhythm, right? Because that was one of the
sure.
things that I think, like what. So you know, I watched your clipped down version of that conversation. Where the conversation was what, an hour? Actually, it was way longer than that, right? That was like a subsection of a multi conversation, if I'm not mistaken.
Which one is this? The open
That the
circle
open
one?
circle, yeah. Or was
Uh,
that just one conversation between you
that
and
was
uh
yeah,
Gav and
or that
Nathan?
was part of one of Luke's live streams, and I
Okay.
joined up on that, and then other
Oh,
people
that's right.
joined as
That's right.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So you snipped it all down, and I think that just helped me, I don't know, just connect with it a lot better, right? Because sometimes these conversations can go on, and it's a little hard to pick out all the really good stuff out of it. So,
yeah. I'm glad
you,
that it was effective in that
yeah, no,
regard.
no,
You know.
yeah, it was,
Yeah.
and I like I said, I don't make comments. Like I have no social media skills of any kind. Like
Yeah,
that was the third YouTube comment I've ever written in my life.
that's good. I think that's a good thing. I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe it's not, but like I think
Well,
yeah,
I've just refused to play the game, honestly. That's
yeah.
what it is. So, but now I'm just like, I'm ready. So,
Welcome, welcome.
um, but yeah, so it just kind of triggered some things in me, and some of the stuff I don't even know why I said it. I do, but one of the things in particular was a rhythm, and like I said, I felt like it had reminded me of something, but then you were like, well, that wasn't exactly what I meant. So I'm interested
Mhm.
to know more about what you do mean by it.
Yeah, part of that as well, though, was a little bit of defensiveness on
Oh
my
yeah, yeah,
regard,
yeah.
because
I
like
used the
these,
H word on you.
yeah, hypnosis. Yeah, these yeah, I mean, YouTube comments is like, I welcome YouTube comments, but it's
Yeah.
like sometimes it's like I don't know if this is a robot, like an AI trying to mess with me,
Yeah.
or like the powers that be. Maybe that's
Hmm.
narcissistic to think that there's people like trying to mess with me, but I mean, I don't know, man. And so sometimes it's like, and also I want to, I'm also like aware that other people will be reading these and stuff, I don't know.
Right.
So I was a little,
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
lose my train of
natural.
thought even
It's
thinking about
natural.
this. Yeah. Like it's
Uh,
so,
a lot of people have a lot of baggage associated with that word.
yeah, well, not just hypnosis, but also like, it's like, I think I was reading into your comment a bit, like, it's like divination. It's when you're reading text, you see the spirit that is running through your mind at the
Well,
time,
yeah, because
largely.
I brought up the whole
Yeah.
Frank Luntz quote there, about it's not what you say, it's what people hear, and you're like, well, no, no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want it to be about my meaning and stuff, and well,
Hmm.
unfortunately, it doesn't really matter, right? Sometimes people will just
Yeah,
pick
yeah,
up
yeah.
whatever it is that you say,
Yeah.
regardless of what you mean.
Hmm. Yeah, and
So,
exactly. Like I think just like I think I don't think I was hearing your meaning or seeing what you mean. I think I was projecting a
yeah,
bit or something, or divinizing. But
you're
yeah, so
protecting against the dark arts, man.
yeah, for real. That's what you gotta do, man. It's like if you have YouTube comments coming in, you gotta be a little cautious in this regard. Especially
Ready.
when even not just with potentially critical comments, but also like, if people are like praising you, it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, dude. you know, but
Hmm.
but yeah, not but your comment, yeah, is super, like, I'm very grateful that you commented. I think it is very interesting stuff. And I don't know, I'm
No,
losing my train of thought a bit
yeah,
in
it's
this
fine. It's fine. I
this
think, I think that's so, let's, uh, how did I even find you? Right. That's probably an
sure.
interesting thing to think about, right? How does one even find Jonathan on YouTube? Right. Um, so like I said, I'm a fairly new Christian. So obviously I somehow got tagged into Jordan Peterson's realm, right? Going through
Hmm.
the biblical stories and stuff. And then of course I find Paul. I follow, Paul Vanderklay. And over time, well, you get bored with things. And so, especially like I said recently, I've just been really, really I'm just not pleased with, I'll say, like the elite level of YouTube or the elite level of the culture. And so I'm stepping down a few levels. And so that's when I started looking closer at all the smaller TLC channels, for instance. And
Mhm.
so then I found you and I'm like, oh, okay, I've been following a little bit of your channels and whatnot. And then I don't know, just something about that video just triggered a few things in me. And I'm like, you know what? This is where I'm going to start. I'm going to make a comment here. And then here we
Cool,
are,
man.
you
That's
know.
awesome. I'm so happy about that. It's so great.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
and
think I
and
think from the
if
background, I have also been trying to figure out how I wanted to even start making videos and even thinking about how would I even want to approach this. And so
Yeah,
I
I'm
was kind of
super
looking at what you
self-conscious
were
about
doing,
that.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You reminded me, and speaking about that, that's where we were. That's where brought us back to the thread, which was we were talking about the rhythm and how
Hmm.
that comment. That's one of the things that you were thinking about. Maybe. Oh yeah, you asked like maybe to hear more about like what I mean by that
Yeah.
or something. Um, I guess although maybe I think maybe I should respond to what you just said about finding my channel a bit more. I guess. Um, I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's just cool to see that. Um,
Well, I
man.
think there's some kind of shift going on, or maybe it's just me.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, man. So much. Yeah. All right. Okay. So you're there's so many things, but so I have to just pick one right now, which is we were talking about the rhythm. Um, and so for me, um, I tend to think about this in terms of Taoism
Hmm.
and like the pattern of reality,
Okay.
where it's like um, the natural the natural order of things, which is like you could also another way of conceptualizing it would maybe be like God's will, like the just how things happen.
Hmm.
It's like we can deviate from God's will and like not be in harmony with the pattern. And then but as we move towards theosis, we that natural rhythm, the Tao flows through us, or the logos, however, um, you know, uh, can shine through um, your communication, both verbal and non-verbal. But in terms of rhythmic, um, it's like I think that this pattern, I don't know, man. There's two ways to look at it. Like one is this Tao flowing through you type of idea, and the other one is that like uh, communication is like music, where it's like, and I think those two ideas are connected
Hmm.
probably, but this idea of communication as music, where it's like um I don't know, man, like everything is mathematical, right? So
Well,
there's
let's
these,
hook onto the music thing because I think
sure,
there's something there, right?
yeah,
It's like music in the sense that you don't play music for no reason. You can, I guess you can play music for yourself, but ultimately music is to be played for others or with others,
sure,
right? And so,
interesting,
yeah, I kind of like that sort of um it's like trying to build resonance or something, you know.
yeah. Yes,
And I was thinking of rhythm. Okay, well, what else is rhythm? Rhythm's like a collection of harmonics, which leads to a
yes,
resonance of some kind, right? And so you're trying to get into that
precisely,
resonance, and when we're
yeah,
there, that's that whole loop or that the flow state, right? Where you're
yes,
trying to tap into the flow state, and then when you're there, you're talking, and ideas are
yeah.
moving back and forth and transforming and all
Yeah,
those
and
sort of
it's like
things.
everyone is in that all the time. It's just like some of those, like everyone is speaking in this musical, rhythmic,
Mm.
resonance-based, harmonic way or something, except like some of those are like closer to the the deep music. You know, like I remember Paul Vanderklay talking about uh the God who sings the song and the people rebelled and tried to sing their own song and or
Hmm.
something like that. Um, I wish I could quote that story better. Maybe
It's
if I
okay.
find it, I'll put it in here or something. But um, dang it, I just lost the thought again.
It's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
well, it totally just reminded me of a story, a short story that I listened to it. Are you familiar with Jack Vance at all?
No,
No? Okay. So he wrote this story called The Moon Moth.
the moon
And
moth.
yeah, the moon moth. You could look it up on
Okay.
YouTube. It's there. It's really fascinating. But it's basically like, you know, everybody wears masks, so nobody can really see your true identity. And the status of your mask represents the status of like how much um I don't know how much status you have in the society. But see, everybody has to sing. And there's like seven instruments that they use to communicate. And so all speech is done through the singing, through
Whoa.
these instruments, and it's just really fascinating.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
why, but it just kind
wild.
of it made me remember that story. Um,
Yeah, I can definitely see why. That's
well,
like
it's
super
and it
interesting.
kind of you follow this off-worlder, right? Who doesn't really believe in it to a
You
degree.
follow this? I didn't quite catch what you said. You follow this what?
Well, he was an off-worlder, right? And
Okay.
so he's kind of like an ambassador or something like that. And
Hmm.
so he doesn't entirely like he's using the language, but he's not quite in tune with it, right? And so they're
Hmm.
kind of like attacking him to a degree
Yeah.
because he doesn't have that, he doesn't have that rhythm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yes. And I think that there's again a million things come to mind, but one is that this idea of music and when you dance to music,
Mhm.
even when you hear music, there's been like scientific studies that say that when you hear music, your brainwaves like naturally sync up to the music
Mhm.
in the sense where
Okay.
it's like you naturally harmonize or come into resonance. And also, I'm reminded of how when you read text, you're they've done more scientific studies that when your vocal cords actually like the signals get sent to your vocal cords to read it out loud,
Okay.
but they're so subtle that you don't like actually like hear it or make the sounds. But it's like the signals are still there, so it's like something about like speaking and reading are like super connected or something. But
Oh,
uh, I'm gonna just keep throwing on ideas, so I have to be
yeah, no,
careful
that's
here.
that's cool actually. Yeah.
Yeah, with the brainwaves though, and syncing up to music, if we were using this analogous connection between somebody's speaking or gesture being a type of music that has a particular rhythm to it that's maybe close to the ultimate rhythm or not
Mhm.
close to the ultimate rhythm, regardless it's there. It's like when we hear that rhythm in someone's voice, this distinction between rhythm and intonation is spinning in my mind. But when we hear that, we naturally sync up with the person we're talking with
Mhm.
or something. It's like I'm also reminded of mimesis.
Okay. Yeah, you
Um,
mentioned that. I don't
yeah.
know much about it.
So mimesis, the way that it's usually conceptualized is how the things that we desire are largely based on what other people desire, and that's like where we come to our desires. But I'm also maybe like I should be using the word mimicry, but I also
Okay.
think it's like the same type of thing, just where have you ever encountered somebody that's like so fake and like like just committed to their facade that it's like the power with which they throw the rhythm onto you, almost like you end up participating in the same type of facade or something.
Hmm.
It's like, and
I know what you're talking about. I don't. I feel like I don't know.
yeah,
Part of the
maybe
whole
maybe
reason
maybe
the
like
part of the reason I like hypnosis and went into it as much as I did was kind of to intentionally catch all those kind of things.
yeah, okay, yeah, this is great. This is great position to move towards hypnosis because I think that's like that's where we're on. So like I'd be very interested to hear what you said like if you said you've learned a bunch about it, like it'd
Well,
be,
so okay, I'll give you the rundown here. So kind of close to your age, right? When I was in my early 20s, getting into my career and whatnot, I was really interested in personal development, right? And so I was checking out all the different you know different whatever different people. One of them is called neuro linguistic programming. Now,
yes.
you go look it up. It's pseudoscience. Sorry.
Yeah,
That's
I've
what
heard
everybody
vaguely of
says.
this, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember being fascinated by it, but I didn't.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things about it was is that you got a linguist and another guy who basically they go in and they look at these therapists. It was Virginia Starr and Milton Erickson. And so what they were
Mhm.
doing is they were participating in their sessions and they were actually trying to figure out like what are they doing? Right? What are the language that they're doing and what kind of states and all these sort of things are they causing in these other people? And so that was sort of the basic framework of how the whole thing starts. But the one part of it that really triggered me was this whole concept of reframing. You ever heard of that term, reframe?
Yeah, John Vervaeke talks about that a bunch.
Okay, so one of the stories that always stuck with me was they were working with this lady. She's, like a professional housewife or something, right? She cleans all the time, and she particularly cleans the carpet, like
Mhm.
obsessively cleans the carpet to where it's like people walk in the door and like take off your shoes or walk around the back. It was just, but then when they go out and everything, the family was just really fine. There was no problems. But the second they got in the house and the second there were footprints on that carpet, she was irritated, right? And everybody was irritated by it. And so the reframe is that they basically say, hey, okay, go back, think about that pristine, fresh carpet. And she's all like, yeah, okay, that makes me feel good. And then she says, now, what you need to realize is that that means nobody is in your house. None of your loved ones are in your house
Yeah.
anymore because of that pristine carpet without any footprints
Hmm.
in it. And then she just like, blah, completely shifted and melted
Yeah.
because it reframed the entire thing to
Hmm.
where the problem disappeared. And so ever since then, that kind of triggered all of this stuff for me.
Yeah.
And I just became fascinated with it. And of course, then you find out NLP and all this sort of stuff is heavily influenced by hypnosis.
Yeah. Didn't like all of psychology like kind of spawn out of hypnosis in a way where it was like there was a um I think like the first uh I don't know, and I don't know what terms to use, but I'm pretty sure that like hypnosis or something along that lines, I'm forgetting exactly what it is, but it
So,
was
so
like,
one of the early points is around mesmerism.
yes, that's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so yeah, and it was a healing, right? They were basically basically the guy was like, he was so congruent and so convincing with these people that he basically said, my body has magnetic powers in it, and I
Yeah.
can like purge these diseases from your body. But in reality, what was happening is that he was pushing information to
Yeah.
them, and they were
Yeah.
taking it in, and that whole you have that power in you.
Hmm.
You might not realize, most people don't. And that's kind of what hypnosis really is, right?
Yeah.
It is, um,
Because it
it
doesn't have to be, you don't have to actually speak, like you
no,
can do
no,
this in
no.
framing of the situation just by
Hmm.
your nonverbal being, you know?
Right, right. And it's happening all the time, right? Every movie you watch, every political speech, every sermon you go to, like all of these things
Hmm.
have all this stuff in it. All of propaganda, all of marketing,
Hmm.
it's all basically the same thing. I'd even argue that meditation is even deeply associated with it because what ultimately what it really is you have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind, right?
Sure.
And the unconscious mind is the thing that's like controlling everything in your life, right? It's like, ooh, I got this strange feeling of on my hair, or I gotta breathe breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. Like
Hmm.
all these things are happening. You can't possibly focus on all of it because you'll just collapse, right?
Hmm.
And so we split and we say, okay, the conscious mind, we're only going to pay attention to like 7 things. Anything
Hmm.
beyond 7 things, it's unmanageable. And so the unconscious mind's taking care of all of that other stuff.
Hmm.
But that's why the unconscious is so powerful too. And so hypnosis is really just that. It's just like you get into this agreed state that we're both going to do this thing. And then basically I help you remove that barrier so that we can talk to the unconscious. And that's where all the loops are running.
Hmm.
That's where all the habits and rituals are, they just go on autopilot. And so
Yeah.
you bop down that conscious barrier because
Yeah.
it's there to protect you. Otherwise you'd just constantly be getting influenced by anything and everything.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, and so I became really fascinated with it because I kind of wanted to protect myself from these
Yeah.
things because they are happening all the
Yeah,
time.
man. Yeah, man. I mean, I think that that's of supreme significance. And I also, I definitely don't. The problem is that like uh, I think this is an inherently ambivalent thing in the sense that it's natural and it permeates
Hmm.
everything. Like this is how humans are, or
Hmm.
something like that, right? But as we become aware of this, as we start to um, elevate this from an unconscious phenomena to a conscious phenomena, although perhaps it's more of like a intermeshing of conscious and unconscious or something like that. It's like an integration of this uh, capacity or something like that. As like what comes, two things are presented, right? And one is like the resonance and the intimacy that is possible,
Hmm.
where it's like but then the other is what you were just saying of like to protect yourself, right? And I think these are both super important. Um, However, like being human animals, we I don't know if that's exactly the right way to put it, but we naturally go to the negative side, right? Like the danger and
Yeah.
stuff like that is more salient to us for
Mm.
survival purposes. So I think a lot of times we forget that like about the good side of this,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and I'm not saying that you're doing that. But
Yeah.
I just like I don't know. I'm kind of just like fleshing out
No, no, you're fine. You're
where I've
fine.
been
Keep
thinking
going.
of that. Yeah. One thing, and more to say about that, but before I lose it, one thing you said, seeding, right? The word seeding.
Hmm.
I think that's beautiful because, um, I think there's a Jesus quote that's like, your words go forth as seeds or something. Um, I don't remember exactly. I
It's
should,
fine.
but the um, but this reminds me of. Have you looked at the CTMU stuff at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not in
Did you watch
great
the?
depth. I mean, it's I don't know. It's simplistically difficult,
Yeah,
right?
I hear you. The Yeah, yeah. I don't know. So much that could be said. Yeah, I think the reason I bring it up is because uh, did you watch the CTMU compatriots thing that was just started up with the four guys talking? It was on CTMU Singularity.
No, no.
Okay,
I
so
haven't watched that yet.
and yeah, so in that one of the guys is coming from a perspective. He has a channel called Digital Archaeology, where he's talking
Okay.
about Hebrew as a programming language
Hmm.
and how, like, if we look at the gematria of it, um, like the numerical values, it's like this much more deep, complex code, and um, it sounds kind of schizo crazy off the bat, but once you look into it, it's like, oh yeah, this guy's. It seems like this
Like
guy's
like
onto
it has a
something.
numerical aspect to it, is what you mean?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like like more so than we could realize, where it's like pi and stuff is like encoded into this, and like everything is geometric, um and he's
It's
also
literally
talk
the opening from Pi, the movie
yeah,
Pi.
yeah.
They talk about that
Wait,
very
say it again.
thing. The movie Pi, like in the very beginning, the guy talks about Hebrew
Oh
and how
yeah.
it has this mathematical structure to it.
Oh wow.
I don't know the like it's been a long time since I've seen it, but
Yeah, I might have to look that up.
yeah.
um
Sorry,
the
C two
No,
medium.
no, no, all good. And the and he also talks about like speech being um like a much more powerful thing than we, like the right words have these mathematical resonance, or something like that.
Hmm.
um I'm gonna butcher it if I try and say more about it, but the other guy talks about these standing waves kind of things, where it's like these, I forget what word, but these it's like a pattern of um wave activity in like muscles or in the brain or stuff. It's like, I guess it's the whole body, where it's like
Hmm.
this is where the problems come from. It's like these uh patterns, these rhythms that are not like in sync with either the whole rhythm, or like they're kind of disharmonious rhythms or something like that.
Okay.
I think about them as like little knots. I don't know if that's a good way to think about that, but and this connection between all these various ideas, like what we've been talking about, and then those two guys, it's like when you speak, I think there's a way that you can speak with a right rhythm, or perhaps like a mathematical resonance, or like appropriateness or something like that, that it like um it seeds the logos or the Tao in somebody or something like that, where it's like it can directly alleviate these arrhythmias, like uh these little standing wave things or something like that, where it's like for some reason I'm imagining Jesus being like, you are healed,
Yeah.
and it's like boom, or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
It's like this person is suddenly no longer blind, like,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I know what you're getting at here. You
yeah,
know, it's a lot like, well, it's a lot like the imagination, really, and how powerful it really is. Like you can
yes,
imagine all kinds of problems, and then they become problems, right? Because your
hmm,
mind cannot differentiate an imagined thing from a non-imagined thing. It can to a degree, but it can elicit the same kind of effect, and it can, I think, create that kind of rhythm you're talking about.
hmm,
You know, it's like a
yeah, yeah,
movie,
yeah,
right? You know, it's like you see the car accident or whatever, and then you tense up. It's like, well, it didn't happen to you, but
yeah,
you imagined it to a degree, and so
yeah,
you take it in and embody it.
yeah. And thinking, and this reminds me of Karen from the Meaning Code, talking about she just had a conversation recently where she's talking about like muscle tension.
Hmm.
It was way more complex than that, but uh, this guy was talking about how these uh, almost like these muscular traumas are like in framing in the way that you described earlier. And like I remember hearing when I was like deep in the madness of trying to figure things out, um, hearing some magic guy, the guy from Magic.me, um, Jason Louv, talking about how the most powerful spiritual thing that he ever did was get like a deep tissue massage or something like that, where it's like these knots or something are like these enframings in the rhythm that is your body, that is you, and like they and like to release these tensions. um I don't know so much,
It's
man.
sounding a lot more like acupuncture, really,
Hmm.
right? You
Yeah,
know,
it's kind of
there's
like that. Well,
these
it's like the
channels of energy that are
very
flowing
interesting.
through your body, and
Yeah.
then you've got these particular points that are blocking them, you know, whatever
Hmm.
that means
Yeah, it's
exactly to
kind of like
you.
that. Yeah.
Then they boop and they
Yeah.
do
But
whatever it
maybe
is that
like
they do.
instead, yeah, I think maybe like, although to maybe try and close up this rhythm thing, it's like maybe to think about those points that the acupuncture as like, rather than being like physical things, they're like temporal things where
Mm,
it's like there's a rhythm, you're singing a song, and that like song is the knot or something like that. Um, and then talking about acupuncture is interesting when you think about, I think I connect like sharp objects to and like the sword of language or something like that. Like
mhm.
the logos being this sharp thing that cuts and discerns. And
Yeah.
it's like thinking about the acupuncture needles, it's like pointed words. Pointed,
Yeah.
a pointed
Yeah.
word can really heal someone, I
Mm.
think, you know?
Well,
I don't know.
this totally reminds me of this metaphor that captured me a while ago. Um, Here you go. Here's a magician that you may find interesting. Not like David Blaine kind of magician.
Yeah.
A guy named Lionel Snell, or he also goes by Ramsey Dukes. Um, not suggesting anybody goes looks him up, but if you do,
Is there
uh,
something that like about him that came to mind?
yeah,
I feel like I've heard that name.
he talks about this whole metaphor. He calls it like the cup and the dagger, right? And
Yeah.
so it's the difference between like the dagger is a scientific mind, and it's always like slicing everything up into little pieces. But the cup is being open and receptive to everything. And so the idea is that, the modern man is way too familiar with the dagger and doesn't have enough cup. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about it in the sense of like the whole re-enchantment thing. It's just
Yeah.
like I need a lot more cup in my life. There's way
Yeah.
too
Who
much dagger
doesn't?
going
Yeah.
on, right? So
Yeah.
it's just something that's been sort of floating around in my
Yeah.
mind.
Well, the cup, speaking of the cup, I'm thinking about the tarot and the cosmogram of
Hmm.
Galahad with, the Grail. And, the Grail perhaps is what will come to balance our logos centrism or something like that. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, gosh, I guess, um, all right, I guess that's, um, I'm curious, like, if you have any thoughts about that, like this, uh, Galahad Adonis guy, you know, because I hate to put you on the spot, man.
No, 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 no.
I
It's
do.
fine. It's fine. I feel like many of the things that he says I've heard before, and he's really
Mhm.
good at sort of taking a lot of things. Um, I don't know. I couldn't specifically tell you everywhere that I've heard them. But he is really good with being able to weave it all together in a very artful way. Um,
Yeah.
Now it unfortunately it reminds me of someone I'm not particularly fond of anymore. At one point in time, I thought they were interesting, but it kind of reminds me of like somebody channeling, right? They're a channeler and they're channeling some spiritual being and they're getting secret information and they're putting it into place. It's like the law of one sort of stuff for me. And there was a whole, I don't know, it led all the way up into the 2012 Mayan calendar reset kind of stuff. Um,
Mm.
and so it's got a lot of those vibes to me. Um, so I don't know. I'm a little on the fence about it. I take it with a lot of caution.
Yeah. I think
Um,
that's wise to take it with caution for sure.
I
Skepticism.
find it interesting, and he, not everything he says is all interconnected. There's obviously the core piece of the cosmogram thing, which is being transmitted from the spiritual entity. But then there's other elements which I don't feel are as connected. Like one of the things he was talking about was a lot of the metaphorical language sort of piece where um, he was talking a lot about like horizontal lines and vertical lines and things being greater higher than is better and lower than and um, uh, I can't remember what everything was about it, but
Mm.
so I mean there were some good things.
Mm.
I certainly will go through them again, but
Gotcha.
that was
Yeah.
my very first initial thing was like, man, this sounds a lot like that channeler guy from a
Yeah.
while ago. And
Hmm.
I have uh I have to be very cautious about
Yeah. Yeah.
taking that in.
On one hand, I definitely would like to. you know, I don't know if the one hand framing is correct. Like, I definitely think it's wise to, um, you know, be discerning with all that, and come to your own impressions. But I also think that there's something where he's kind of like a Black Mirror, where it's like people will, um, it's like whatever, I don't know, he's gonna remind you of people or something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, and I mean, he's very good at saying, "Don't trust me.
yeah.
This is just what I'm telling you. Take what you
Hmm.
want out of this."
Yeah. I didn't
And
I didn't really want to like go into a whole diatribe about him
no,
right
no, it's
now.
fine. He's
I
on
was
your mind.
yeah.
He's in your focus.
Yeah. Um I guess more so, or what do you think about this? You mentioned earlier that you went through a whole occult new age phase
Hmm.
and stuff. It's like, have you kept and carried any of that through, or have you, like, do you still think that we're moving into the age of Aquarius, for example?
Um, to be honest, it's not something I worry about.
Mhm.
I think that's the difference. Um, so, okay, for instance, how did I become a Christian? Yes, it started with reading the book of John, but it ended with reading the book of Ecclesiastes,
Mhm.
right? The book of Ecclesiastes is the one that really, I think, settled the score for me. And mainly is because like I felt like I could have wrote the book. Like it had such a like a resonance connection with me that I literally felt like I'm like, man, I could go back through some of my notebooks and say, oh, I I probably wrote a great many of things that were in that book.
Mhm.
But one of the things that the biggest takeaway for me about all of it is just this whole notion of, God's put eternity in your heart. He's also, he'll keep you as busy as you want to be. So if you want to be busy chasing all these things, he will gladly give you more than you can handle in that department. And so I guess I've got very balanced about everything and say, too much knowledge isn't necessarily a good thing. Too much foolishness is also not a good thing. And so where is the balance between the two? And so that's where I kind of have to say, I didn't, you know, it's not that I am not still somewhat interested in the occult kind of
Mhm.
ideas, but I have to take them with a lot of caution,
Yeah,
a whole lot of caution, just because
for sure.
they can really go, you can dive really, really, really deep and get really, really caught up in some of that stuff really fast.
For sure, man. Yeah, even Steiner and stuff, like I post stuff about Steiner.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of people, Steiner obviously spoke a lot about Christ and stuff, and I think he became a Catholic near the end of his life or
Mm.
something. I don't quite, I might be having that wrong, but I know that he was always like, he always, uh, like there's not all Steiner is created equally, like temporally speaking and stuff.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true with Valentin Tomberg, who wrote Meditations on the Tarot.
Okay.
Um, that he, Roger Buck, for instance, would insist that that we look at Tomberg in this temporal sense. But uh, with with um, I don't know, man. There's something else I was going to say about Galahad, which is that what? Oh, message there. Um, yeah, it slipped my mind now.
It's okay.
Um, there was something right before I got to that.
You were talking about Steiner and then you were talking about I think Thornburg
Homburg, yeah.
and
Oh yes, that's what it
Thornburg.
reminded me of. Is that you mentioned how uh you've heard a lot of the stuff that he has said before, and I
Hmm.
think um I definitely think that there's like part of that where he's like constellating, like linking up these various stars,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and and then I also think that some of it is like when uh people can come to like the same idea without having foreknowledge,
Mm.
you know, like where um I have to be careful not to sound too I also would like to clarify, like he's not a cult leader and I'm
No,
not in a
no,
cult.
no, no, no.
You know, it's
I
like I
know
think
that.
this
I know
guy's
that.
doing cool stuff. Yeah.
No,
And
he
I
is.
don't
He
think I
is.
think Grimgrace, if you saw that one, I think he was just
Yeah,
messing with me, you know,
he
but
is. He is. I think
yeah,
he
but
is. Or maybe he isn't.
for the
I don't
most
know.
part, for the most part, there's a little bit of you know, a
A
little bit
might
of
be in a
black
cult if.
mirroring, perhaps.
Yeah, you might be in a cult if.
Yeah, perhaps a little bit, but I really don't think that's what like he's
Is
on
that
about.
such a
I
bad
think,
thing?
I mean, we're all in a cult to some degree, and but I think that he's more like Galahad is more so trying to create like these cupbearers, not create, but like trying to empower people to become actualized or, to be themselves in like a truly powerful way, you know. And but when it came to like he has the circle, the Ouroboros, the
Hmm.
open circle in his cosmogram, right? And as far as I understand it, I remember I had asked him one time if he had read the book, and he said that he had like skimmed through it. And I think I got the impression at the time that it was like after, I don't know, as a matter of fact, like if he had uh, looked at that book after, but it's like there's a bunch of these things that show up in his work that I feel like just happened because he picked up on the pattern that is true or something like that.
Well, I mean, okay,
You know? Yeah.
let's take him at face value. Let's say everything that happened to him, did it happen to him exactly as he says? I mean, who
Hmm.
I don't know him. I don't want to call him a liar or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Neither do
You know.
yeah.
So let's just take him for what he says.
Hmm.
So let's say he's talking to a spirit being of some kind, an angel, whatever you want to call it. Well, if we're going to sit here and say, at least I personally, I believe in the spiritual realm. This is definitely something that I am, uh, tearing down the walls of my reality tunnel
Hmm.
to account for the spiritual reality that I had, painted over my eyes of saying that doesn't exist, that doesn't exist. Well, no, it does exist, and it's all around. And if you really knew how invasive it really was, you'd probably freak out really bad, right? I know there's a lot of
That's kind of
people
what
that are
happened to
like,
me. It's like it all hit me at once.
a lot of people are like, oh, if I just seen this thing or whatever. Do you really want to see that? Like, honestly, like on any given day, do you really want to see a demon or a spiritual being of any, like, I personally, no. It
Maybe
would
not.
scare
Yeah,
me.
definitely not like in like a super vivid way. But I think, as you were saying earlier, the ability to discern these things is critical.
Right.
To for like safety, not to, if that's the right word
Well,
or
but
something.
and I guess to my point is it's like, okay, let's just say there's like this sort of, this string of knowledge in the background, right?
Hmm.
And those type of beings have access to that information through
Hmm.
time, and they can talk to people, and that's why he knows what he knows. Maybe he
Hmm.
picked it up unconsciously here and there, but
Hmm.
we've even thinking about the whole unconscious as a whole and the archetypes and these sort of concepts. It's like I man, that's something I've been thinking a whole lot about recently. It's like, well, what is the unconscious? What is a soul? And like, where does it reside? Is it in my
Hmm.
body? Is it both? Is it, all these kind of things? And so
Hmm.
I kind of wonder how much more access to things we do have. But we've just been so trapped in this modern frame of everything that
Hmm.
you, it takes, well, I don't know, it takes something, some external thing to trigger it or something like that. So
Hmm. You're talking about taking him at his word, though. It's like I
yeah,
felt like
yeah.
you were kind of alluding to like maybe we should be like cautious about like what this entity might be that he's communicating or something. Is that kind of
Oh,
where
I
you're getting
both.
at? Yeah.
Both, I mean, I think anytime I think when you look to the Bible, a lot of the patriarchs and stuff had divinations. They spoke with entities, angels, these sort of things. So,
Hmm.
um, I think anytime we're talking about that kind of stuff, we need to be cautious.
Hmm.
But at the same time, do I want to discredit everybody who has that experience? No. I
Gotcha.
think it's
Yeah.
far more relevant. Like I even think about the Bible as a whole. I go, it's like the Bible is amazing in the sense that, we're able to get just this much of God's word to us. Like how much
Mm.
more exists, an infinite amount. You know, to
Yeah, I
just
hear you.
even get this much is astonishing.
Mm. Yeah. I That's the other thing. I think maybe that video that you commented on maybe would give some of an impression that I'm like not a big fan of the Bible or something. I don't know
Mm,
if that's the case, or maybe other videos that I'm thinking of. Because I was talking about how like we're bewitched by text and like we need to remember what it is and stuff. And I think um like I don't think that I don't know, man. There's so many freaking directions I could go talking about Galahad and text and talking about um
Well,
the
a lot
Bible
of
and
this started with just the simple notion of language and words as a whole. And if I'm going through your videos and there's one thing that I pick up on, it's sort of this, at least I think you have some kind of desire to, I don't know, identify this, I don't know, like transcendent language of sorts.
kind of that reminds me of John D talking about the language of the angels or something. He had
I
this
don't know
idea of
about
like
that.
a yeah, he had this idea of like an angelic Enochian language or something
Mm,
that we uh that would allow us to recover like the true language or something like that.
okay.
Um, which I definitely resonate with, but not like it definitely wasn't like a huge source of inspiration for me. More so what it was for me is that I had like an experience where I feel like this constellation of ideas that we're talking about, or this hyper object of ideas, like I don't know how to phrase it. I feel like I uh, had an experience where I like saw that. I saw like, you know, it was for me, it was in the context of a personal friendship with someone, but it was like I was like, wow, the heights of this are truly wondrous. And I've been kind of trying to give language or trying to put it into words without desacralizing it
Hmm.
or something, you know?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's like, and also there's lots of complications where it's like, if I really think that I have this super important thing to say or something, it's like, you get all the social problems that come with like trying to tell people something where it's like, oh, who do you think you are, a fucking messiah? It's like, you know, and it's like, I don't know, it's, I'm just, I'm trying to talk about this thing that's like blowing my mind. I don't know, I'm not trying to be a messiah, but it's like if, I don't know,
I
you know,
it reminds me of a great many things.
yeah, that
It's
seems to be the running thread of this conversation where
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
just many things coming to mind.
Well, like I
Um,
said, man, I'm telling you, like a lot of these things you're talking about, it's many of the things that I went through
yeah,
at a very similar age to where you're at, and so I'm just kind of at a I'm somewhat out of cycle to it.
yeah,
But see, like where I think I remember hearing, I don't know, you were doing the clip, I think it was Clip Brigade or something like that, and I think Grimm had mentioned something like, we pull out these clips to kind of show you here's this thing, look at this. This can stop you from going down this rabbit hole or whatever.
mm,
Well, sometimes you know what, the rabbit holes are good.
yeah, yeah,
And honestly, like I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't go down all those rabbit holes.
mm,
And so I wouldn't say, hey, you shouldn't do that. Because who am I to say any of that kind of stuff?
mm,
Like, I don't know what's best for you, and I don't know what's best for anybody. I can only tell you my own experience of things. And then
yeah,
you can take that and do what you want with it.
yeah.
And see, that's kind of like what I take out of Galahad stuff, right? That's what he's doing to a degree. He's saying, look, this
Mm.
happened to me. This is the best I can explain it to you. If it
Uh,
resonates with you, you take it and you run with
yeah,
it and
man.
what have you. And I
Yeah,
think
man.
that's where you're going, right? Is something happened. You don't know how to put it in words.
Yeah,
Can
I
it
actually
even
think
be
that
put into words, right?
yeah, yeah, man. I actually think that like that's kind of what I was. why I was getting hesitant around the whole Messiah speak, where it's like I actually think that like there is a an object that is trying to be like birthed into the world, where it's like this a realization or something, or like a new way of being, or like a uh yeah, like a new capacity perhaps, or like and like this is like a temporal object that will like, we are at a turning point in history or something. And I actually think that like I the reason I resonate so much with Galahad's work, Griffin's work, however you want to phrase it, is because I feel like it was the same object. Like I feel like it was the same thing and we were seeing it from different angles.
Hmm.
And another implication of this is that I don't think he's particularly uh special, I suppose. Like special in the sense, I do think he's special in the sense that he's given the most coherent account of this object or something like that, but I don't think that like, and I do think perhaps he was chosen for that, but I don't necessarily see him as like I definitely don't see him as like a new Christ or something. I think that he's very Christ-like in many ways, but I think it's more of like he is just on the pulse or something like that. That's kind of how I experience it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't know what to say here. Actually, I'm kind of the way that I speak about him here is a lot different than when I have messaged with him, because it's like I project like crazy onto him and I have to
Well,
like,
well,
you
and
know,
you think about just speaking out loud. Like what is,
mhm,
to a degree, speaking out loud is thinking out loud, really.
mhm.
And you can really compress a lot of information through speaking as opposed to writing. At least I
Yeah,
can.
like,
Like my
yeah,
writing
because
voice is a lot different than my speaking voice, and you can really accelerate all the things that you say rapidly. It's kind of astonishing how much you can spit out in just an hour.
yeah, 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 man. We could sit here for 10 seconds in silence and it would probably I think it could, I don't know, I guess there's, you could pull infinite out of anything, but it's like the unspoken context is so packed with potency and significance or something, so yeah, that's kind of, and that's a struggle when I was uh um trying to talk about this. It's like, hey, I saw the same object from this different angle, and like the angle that I saw it from has to do with this uh what we've been speaking about this whole time, like this communication, this rhythm that is like, and all the intimacy of eye contact and silent listening and stuff like that. And but so I kind of ran into that problem of uh trying to put that into text,
Yeah,
just
no,
like
I don't think you
it's not going to
can.
happen.
Well, you can in the sense if your goal is to self process the information, right? If that's your goal, I don't know, there's something about when you write, you're able to slow down, be very specific about the words that you're going to put down
Hmm.
or not. I mean, you can do it in a more rapid way, but then it's probably a lot more like talking, you know.
Hmm.
But the thing about writing though is that you get to come back to it later, right?
Yeah,
And
no, no,
then
no, yeah, it's
you get
amazing.
to have the
Yeah,
cycle all over again. And that was what the whole temporal thing was all about, because that's
yeah,
what
you
leads to the
mentioned temporal
compression.
compression. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
please go on about that. Yeah.
Well, I stumbled across one of my old notebooks the other day, and I mean, I wrote pages and pages and pages of stuff. Some of it's repeating or whatever because it's just the things that were on my mind at that time. But I'm reading through this and I'm going, ooh, I recognize this, but I don't at all. Right? It's like I know this is something that I would have said to a degree, but I'm now looking at it completely differently with a whole different set of
Yeah.
filters and lenses and all these sort of things. And so
Hmm.
you get that temporal aspect to writing. And that's kind of what I was. That's what I had first thought about. Was it? it's through time, and then you compress it, and that's where you get the metaphorical nature. Well, our language is deeply metaphorical, but you can be very intentional with it, and you can
Mhm.
really compress it down. And that's what a lot of the Old Testament biblical stories, they're deeply compressed stories.
Mhm.
That's what the parables are. They're deeply compressed stories, but then they have nominalizations in them to where they're just open ideas and concepts that mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And so people, um, they kind of fill in the gaps of the things that they need it to.
Mhm.
And so, um, I don't know. Yeah, I was just a lot of this all triggered with the whole Vervaeke stuff with the psychotechnologies, right? And so it was just one of the things about just writing as an extension of your mind. And then not only that, but it's like, okay, you offload all this stuff, right? We have a conversation like this. Well, we could have had a conversation like this through writing. And so we would have offloaded all this stuff out of your mind because you can't keep all of this stuff going simultaneously. So you
Mhm.
offload it to the paper through writing, through that technology.
Yeah.
You let it sit over time, and then you come back to it again, and then you scrape out all the things you don't like. You do it again, you
Mhm.
do it again, you do it again, and then eventually you come back and you've got this new thing that's deeply
Yeah.
compressed. And
Yeah.
then I can give it to
Yeah.
you, and you can take it and you can run with it, a year from now. And so it's just very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, because I it's interesting because uh I think it's like a super subtle thing where
Hmm.
it's so uh it's like that is amazing, like an amazing thing that we have at our disposal, like this ability to compress and share and store and return to and all this stuff, our thoughts.
Hmm.
Um, I just, you say it's like you come back to a new thing. I don't know. I'm thinking about the Bible, where it's like the Bible is no longer written in Hebrew, and there's been all
Hmm.
this stuff taken out of it, you know?
Hmm.
And it's like it's been despirited or something. Although at the same time, and this is where I want to be ultra clear, it's like at the same time, it's still this crazily like ultra powerful, artifact, I suppose you'd call it, like this that is obviously, like super important. And so I'm trying to like I'm talking about this subtlety, and I feel
It's
like a
yeah.
lot of times people bombard me with their impressions of like, oh, you hate the Bible. It's like,
I
that's not what I'm trying to say.
the Bible is a great many things to a great many people.
Yeah.
And like I said, there was 36 years of my life where, um, not only did I give the Bible not even a chance, but I had very much taken on this stance that like you were a complete moron if you were reading it and or even remotely believing what it said.
Yeah, I was pretty much in the same camp, but I
And
definitely don't feel that anymore.
and
Yeah.
so after reading it for myself, and kind of getting, taking on that sort of idea of like, okay, let's be open to this.
Hmm.
And then it just starts speaking to me, like loudly speaking to me. And then it just started, God literally just started pulling me through,
Hmm.
and it's not all just like, for me, the Bible is a book written by people I do believe inspired by God. But the
Hmm.
Bible itself isn't God. It's the whole concept of the map is not the territory. It's like
Yeah.
it's just a map. It's just a book. Same
Hmm.
thing with the church. It's like the church isn't Jesus. Just so you know,
Hmm.
they're two very distinct things. They may be overlapping and they may represent things,
Hmm.
but so yeah, I
I,
don't
the
know.
the word icon is coming to mind. Like it's an icon of. It's almost like the Bible is an icon of God. If we're conceptualizing God as like the pattern of reality or something like that. Although there's obviously more ways that I would also conceptualize God, but it's like yeah, we have to remember that it's an icon and not just like a static picture or something. And that's what in the video I posted yesterday, that's what Luke is talking about, where it's like there's all this nonverbal context and stuff. I don't know, man. I don't want to get too wrapped up in this, because hopefully you feel like I'm with you with respect to that. Um, I definitely want people to read the Bible. However, only if only if they do it. I don't know, bro. I don't know what I'm trying
I,
to say here. You know,
I'm pretty sure I know where you're going.
yeah,
And it's okay. It's
yeah,
okay. Because some people can weaponize it. A
yeah.
lot of people have weaponized it.
It's like I'm kind of pissed that there's no astrology in the Bible. It's like
If you listen to some people, there's a lot of astrology in the Bible.
I
You just
agree.
you
Yeah,
just
I
need to
agree.
you just need to change one of the things when I was like in the very beginning, I ran across this phrase of listening to a lot of the rabbis talk about how they read the Bible and talk about this concept of uh, turning the stone, like the 72 faces of the gem. It's like they take one Bible story and they will come up with 72 distinct and different interpretations of a
Mhm,
single story. And it's
mhm,
no different. It's just like you just
mhm.
you
Although
change that
I don't think
perspective.
that's what's up with the astrology though. I think that with the like there was actually like people writing it in intentionally and
No, yeah, I know what you're
and
talking about. Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
honestly, I haven't spent enough time and our energy to see how much of a connection that I personally can get out of that.
Mhm.
I just don't know enough about it, to be honest. But
Yeah, neither do
I do
I. Yeah.
remember seeing something about it and everything about just how many 12 disciples and the
Mhm.
zodiac sign, all these kind of things, so
Yeah, some of that stuff is like symbolism happens type stuff. But I
mhm.
think as far as I understand it, like there was council, I'm pretty sure it might have been the Council of Nicaea where the idea of the ions in these periods of history was like outlawed or essentially, and like I think there was I'm pretty sure in the Gospel of Thomas, like Christ says, there is a serpent in heaven with 12 scales. I'm completely making that last word
Right.
up, but it's like
Yeah.
something like that, and so I should probably look into that, but I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know. Part
I'm
of
with
this
you,
is like
like
me being a little bit of a jokester with all this tribalism that we see in various denominations and people getting worried about heretics. It's like, oh, you're worried about heretics? It's like we have a freaking global totalitarian system looming on. Like we have bigger problems than freaking, I don't know.
yeah, no,
Um,
I'm with you, and it's actually one of the things that well, it was one of the things that really prevented me from wanting to be a Christian at all in the first place, honestly.
just like all the in
Yeah.
group fighting. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. And even it doesn't I still struggle with trying to, if we could only spend even like 1% of that energy put into that into just helping people meet, know, and follow Jesus, I think everything would be a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, man,
even
I
more
agree. And
so,
I
yeah.
got,
But I it just kind of made me immediately think of like I can appreciate the whole concept of the estuary and sort of like what that means.
mhm.
Like I think I always kind of joke about it. It's like where's the atheist fish fry? Right? Have you
True.
been to one? No,
For real.
because they struggle with this community aspect of it, and a community can't be just a bunch of people complaining about this belief that they don't have anymore, or whatever it
Mhm.
might be. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just why I like that estuary concept and that idea. It's like, look, we don't
me
all
too.
have to believe the same thing, but if we are going to even remotely
Mhm.
act like we want to do something different than the status quo, and I don't know, maybe we can't. Uh, as the more I think about the powers and principalities of things, I kind of wonder how much power we have to sort of change these sort of things. So
Mhm. I don't know, man. I think a turn is coming. I think the human singularity is right around the corner, and we just don't realize it or something like that.
Mhm. The transcendental object at the end of
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Beware of the machine elves, though.
That's true. Yeah. I've never done DMT. Have you ever done DMT?
I have not. No,
Yeah.
no.
Galahad has an article in his Substack where he's decrying the machinos. I think it's called "Beware of Machinos."
I briefly read through it. Yeah, I briefly
Yeah,
read through it.
yeah. Um, Gosh,
Yeah.
there's so much. I think maybe how long have we been going here? I want to finish up this.
uh, an hour and 19 minutes.
Oh wow, that's okay. That's exactly how long my last conversation or the video. It was a little longer, but I cut some stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some
So
things
maybe
that cut.
yeah. Um, Maybe let's try and the one thing. So Galahad talking about efficient interfacing in the human body, and um, this. So what we've been talking about. Oh yes, you were talking about. Gosh, I need to take a moment to collect my thoughts. The um, you were just saying something, and now it's not going to happen. Um,
And it's gone.
yeah, yeah. Um, the
It's okay. I can't remember either. So,
yeah. Um, oh yes, you were talking about how this infighting and the in-group fighting and stuff, and I think that like that's directly connected to what we were talking about before about this like this kind of imbalance um, between like the cup and the sword,
mm,
and also like okay, here's what's up, man. Here I think that, or here's a way that I find useful of thinking about this is that I almost think that like if we think about the human community as a human body, right?
mm,
Let's say the body of Christ, for example, just because it's extra salient or something.
yeah.
um, it's like what makes the the human body function is this effective interfacing and harmonic resonance between the cells. Communication, their communication is uh, seamless or something, and I kind of think that like that's what was up in the metaphorical or literal Garden of Eden, where it's like in the garden, we were all
Mm.
we were like one
Like a,
body,
like a
and like
symbiosis, right?
yeah, I'm imagining like these monkeys being like telepathic with each other, and like and just like ooh, we're all on the same page, you know, and it's like but then there was this fall where it's like we discovered language, and it's like this is a fall, but it's like a prodigal son type of fall, I think, where it's like um we went out to, I think Terrence McKenna uses this kind of framing as well, but I'm not, I think the way that I'm talking about is slightly different, where it's like we go out to use this language, and this, it's almost like another level of communication. We were doing this nonverbal stuff. And then as we got this new one, I was going to say eclipsed, but the word eclipsed has taken on new meaning to me nowadays. Um,
So it's an
the
upgrade. It's an upgrade in the tool set.
but I actually meant it in a negative way, where it's like blotted out this, it's removed this harmonic resonance that we
Mm,
were evolved with, like in the nonverbal, even if it's like electric fields and all that stuff, you know, where as we became logo centric, although that's still not perfect, you know, like as we became bewitched by the words, and we became uh, lost in our infighting because of different ideas and stuff like that, or something like that. Um, you know, we lost touch with this, and we came out of harmony, and we're no longer a coherent body.
mhm,
And however, I think that it's almost like as we develop this higher thing of articulated language and directed reasoning or something like that, um, eventually, I don't know exactly how the link works or something, but it's like we are able to actually see that unconscious stuff and articulate it and understand it and verbally and intellectually and speak about it to the point where it's like we realize that we are abstracted from this deeper rhythm on which we all lie and dance. And then as we see that, we um, move towards an integration of the two, you know? And this integration is, I think, the human singularity, is, I think, the New Jerusalem, is the eschaton, you know, or perhaps like one aspect of it, you know? And uh, does that kind of make sense? Like, do you kind of see that?
I'll say,
What are
I'll
your
say
thoughts about
this. I'll
that?
say this. I know where
Yeah.
you're going. I definitely know where you're going with this. And I
Mhm.
would probably say I think I would have been in a far deeper connection 10 years ago than I am now.
Mhm. Well, I'm curious to
Because,
hear why
well,
you're
yeah.
a little.
So I always think of like self-help and a lot of these other things. And like the problem with self-help is that it's selfish, right? It
Okay.
severely lacks the communal aspect of things. Um, oh man, I completely lost my train of thought there.
You're saying uh here's what I'll say about that idea and how 10 years ago you've been a little bit more resonant with it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I don't know. Okay. I think about sort of like I don't know, the new age as a whole. I'll just say like the mapping or the concept of the new age, right? It's sort of this um breaking through to become something greater than yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that it shares that similar somewhat I feel like it shares that similar selfishness because it's about you. Now I get it now if you want to expand that to like the whole of the totality of society as a whole is elevating or something.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of think about language. I was reading the poetic diction book from Barfield a while ago. And one of the things he kind of talked about was it's like we've the language has been degrading, right? It's not as if it's getting better. It was better, and now it's getting worse in the sense that it's breaking things down into smaller and smaller pieces. The whole scientific, you know, it's like the end result of all science is basically a new name of something that just already was. It's just now we've given it this name as if we know what that actually means.
Mhm.
And so there's like I actually kind of see it as like I don't think we're actually increase. I almost feel like it's going the other direction. I feel like the language is disintegrating.
Yeah, no, I think we're gonna go I think there's like a down first.
Yeah, maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know. It
yeah,
was the first thing that kind of popped in my mind.
yeah.
And I
All
think a
right.
lot of it is just because I feel like I'm very cautious right now.
Mhm. I'm very cautious as well. Like even talking, talking with you, hearing my response is like I'm very accustomed to like being very firm in my not letting other people think my like it's like in a true dialogue. It's like I allow you to think for me by truly listening to you
Hmm.
or something. So it's like a lot of times I get hesitant about that because I'm so used to being um, combated for my poorly articulated ideas,
No,
and
I wouldn't say that at all. No, I mean these kind of ideas take years to
Mhm,
really think about.
mhm,
They take a long time, right? These are not simple ideas or simple
mhm.
concepts.
Yeah,
And I mean, you think about the short time we've talked about and how many different ideas and threads that have already been brought up.
for real. That's like
It's
the
hard to keep up
problem. Yeah,
with.
yeah, yeah.
And
Uh,
it's sort of that acceleration too, It's
mhm,
like I can sit here and say, "Oh, language is degrading down in this direction," but at the same time,
yeah.
it's it, everything is accelerating as a whole.
Yeah, I guess okay, so I want to make sure I understand your your thinking there. And also I want to talk about this idea of temporal compression and also like eschatology, and then maybe we'll wrap it up like
Yeah, that's
because
fine.
this is going on a little long. Like I think although I could go all day on this. I'm just yeah. Um talking about when it comes to this idea, maybe if I flesh it out a little bit more, you'll it'll help you to articulate what you're the first thing that came to mind, which is that you kind of made a connection between like the um almost like a foolish idealism, perhaps, of um New Age thinking of stuff. I'm I'm thinking of like, what do you think about like the New Jerusalem? Like, what do you think the New Jerusalem is going to look like? Or do you think that that's a thing that's like on the way, or like that it's ever present and that like we come into accord with it? Or I'm kind of curious because like I I think that uh this is I think that like the um that's how I think about the New Jerusalem is like it's this effective, efficient interfacing between everybody. It's like a an evolution of, or like a glorification, a redemption, a transfiguration of language, perhaps,
Mhm.
Um, I also think there will be other aspects, like, there'll probably be like, I don't know, maybe they fold out of that that larger thing where it's like this results in restructuring of society and stuff like that. But I don't know, I'm just kind of I want to hear your, because most people I talk to about this stuff, they like don't actually find it interesting at all. They're just like, that's whack and too out there for me to think about. I am too busy.
I mean, to be brutally honest, I don't think I am. I don't think I'm far enough along in my faith journey to really have made it that far into that concept to really speak intelligently about it.
That's
And
probably me too. I'm probably just irresponsibly speaking about
and this is how naive I'll be. It's like I'm assuming you're talking about what's spoken about in Revelation,
it.
but I also
Yeah,
don't
well,
know.
you also have uh,
Or
like Paul talking about the age to come,
okay.
right? I don't know about, I don't know a lot about that, but I know that like, and also like Christ talking about the return of like his return in the second coming. Like,
Hmm.
if we conceptualize the logos, like if Christ is the logos and the logos is the word,
Hmm.
it's like the return of the word.
Yeah.
It's like, or something like that. And or like the return of the rhythm, or like the return of the pattern, the return
Well,
of,
yeah, and now you're full circle and you're sitting here
yeah,
even going like, well, what in the world even is a word?
yeah,
It's
yeah, man.
like what is a thought? What is a word? What are these things? And it's just like you go all the way back and it's like, what is Adam's first job? To name things,
Yep.
It's like
Yeah.
words
Yeah.
all
I don't
through
know. I don't know
it's
at the end of the
it's
day, like
yeah, exactly. It's
where this
so
goes, but
deep, but yet we
yeah.
use them every day. And it's
Hmm.
like you can't even imagine communicating anything without them.
Hmm.
And yet I
And
feel
it's
like I
like,
know so
it's
little
like when
about it.
we, and maybe that's like, so when spirit breathes words, it's like that's when the logos is there. It's
Mm,
like when, or something like that. So I think about it as like, um, I think the return of Christ will be a return of spirit filled, effective communication or something like that, where it's like, well,
I think that would be a good
I don't
thing.
know.
Almost like you could immediately discern
Yeah.
like it would almost all deceitful non-spirited language would essentially
Hmm.
it would be known
Yeah.
immediately or
And what I'm
something.
saying, I realize it's an inflammatory claim, but I think this is happening and we can see it. If we take a second to look, it's like there's a shift happening where people are moving to a visual apprehension of language or something like that. I think, I'm not trying to get rid of the auditory or anything. Like, I think there's a thing happening where people are becoming self-aware of the fact that we are naked all the
Hmm.
time or something like that. It's like, the Garden of Eden, people are naked in the garden. And it's like, I think that if one pays attention, you can see that people are, there's this intimacy that's like being birthed or something, where it's like, I don't know
Yeah.
all the details of it, man.
Well, I mean, let's face it, if I were to look back, if you would have caught me 5 years ago and you said, hey, you're going to be a Christian and this whole
Yeah.
idea of the spirit world being a real thing, and then you're gonna have to wrestle with that. I would have like laughed at you. And now
Yeah.
here I am. I'm still like
I feel the same way.
it is like talk about wrestling with God of sorts, it's like that. Like and I
Mhm.
gotta be I'm like, woo, you gotta be careful with the woo and all these sort of things. But without it, life's a little boring. So
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, man.
but yeah, I think
All right.
it's I don't know. Um and you get past the whole internet. It's almost like the fake world of the internet and the news. Like I think it's like being revealed for what it is. Right?
Mm,
It might be something like that. It's just sort of like people are not as deceived as they once were, or they're
mm.
not. They're just not. They're not.
Yeah, I wonder
It,
about like,
it's
yeah.
they're just not captivated by it like they were. And so, I mean,
Mhm.
I think that's why I'm even here right now talking to you. This is very unlike my character. And I think I was thinking about this. Like you look at one of PVK's videos, right? It'll get like 1,000, 2,000 views, but there's like 30 comments. Okay. So what are the other 1,800 people like? What are they doing? Right?
Mm.
Normal people don't watch those kind of videos. I'll say normal, but it's like in the sense that there's clearly something going on. Like,
Yeah, man.
and I think there's far more people who, if given the right kind of, hey, this is this language that can
Something.
help you get in there,
Yeah,
I got what
something.
you need, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if like, because I don't think that anything is, people will talk about how can God allow evil and stuff or something like that. Like, I almost think that like, um, the internet and all that is still, it's almost like perhaps a catalyst or like the inevitable thing that will uh turn us, as we move away from print and we're all watching visual media,
Hmm.
then it's almost like we realize to apprehend each other visually or like more deeply in that respect or something. And then also at the same time, the internet illuminates or like it brings into stark contrast like true communion versus this fake matrix communication stuff, like,
Yeah.
and that will almost, that helps people hear the call towards consummation, where it's like
Mm.
this thing is calling um, this transformation or something. Yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit more about. Wait, oh yeah, you talked about temporal compression, about how you can return to ideas and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that was my general
Yeah,
take on it, but I'm sure there's a lot more there that I don't even
yeah,
know.
yeah. For me, it was making me think about like I don't know. It's basically the same thing, like looking at large spans of time, and um, but in the context of communication, it's like to see the through line of somebody. I don't know, man. I think I'm kind of running out of steam here because there's
It's
just
okay.
so much stuff, So
Yeah,
perhaps
well,
not,
let's just
yeah,
wrap it up here. We can come back later at some point in time if you want.
yeah,
Be
man. I would
great.
love
That'd
to.
be
I
awesome,
think
man.
I'm sure that after I end this, like I'll have be bombarded by a billion ideas and stuff, and
Well,
so
and to be honest, I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is I noticed you're getting engaged with this, and while I appreciate your clips, I was way more interested in the conversations you were having with people. And I
thanks,
think
man.
there's something about that. I like that. I was really interested in those videos in particular.
Cool,
So
man. I'm glad to hear that.
I still think there's a place, right? Because the clips is the compression, right? It's
Mm,
you pulling out all these ideas that you find interesting. You're putting them together, you're pressing them, and then you're packaging them up and giving them to others.
mhm.
And so that very much is still, and I think I want to figure out how I'd like to get into that, and so that's kind of my next steps really is to just figure out
To
where I
like
want
do
to go
your
from
own,
here. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
cool.
So
Yeah, man, I support it. If
cool.
you want to post this on a channel of your own as well or something, totally welcome to do that. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm glad to hear. Hold up. I'm ending a call at the moment. Go for it. All right. Yes, sister.
It's all good, man.
Wonderful timing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I think this is good, man. So
Cool, man.
you gonna slice this one up or anything?
I don't know.
Yeah, just
I
do
can't really help it. Like
a little mild editing.
the clipping comes very like naturally to me,
Yeah.
and where I kind of, so I don't know.
Hey,
Hopefully
but
naturally rather than automatically or something. You know?
right. No, no, it's yeah, I don't think it's for everybody.
Mhm.
But you then wield the you're picking out the salience, right?
Mhm. All
So
right.
you gotta own that.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. My sister walking in just kind of fried my brain.
It's all good,
Um,
man. We've been at it for a while.
yeah.
So
So yeah, I would definitely love to do this again. Uh, and I'm probably gonna post this uh like within the hour or like next hour. So if that's cool with you.
yeah, that's all
Um,
cool, man.
all right. All right, man. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. You know, hopefully, yeah, I appreciate your kind words as well with regard to my clipping and my videos and stuff. And um, yeah, I'm very glad that you are kind of entering the conversation, you know, because it seems like you're super interesting. It's like you know, you're not a I feel like we are similar in the sense that you kind of have similar like backstory.
Yeah.
Although I also feel like there's stuff I can learn from you. So it's great, man.
Oh,
I
there's
enjoyed talking with you a lot.
if there's one thing I learned from Peterson, it's that it's you know
Yeah,
you
you can learn
barely
from
know
everybody,
yourself.
but
You
you know,
barely know yourself, let alone so to learn anything from any other person, it's not that
mm,
hard.
yeah, cool,
So,
man.
all right, man. Well, it's good talking to you.
Yeah, you as well.
Okay, talk to
Um,
you later.
all right.
All right, bye.
See ya.